Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on the 26th of April, brought to you at 8 a.m. every single morning by New Zealand Sport Radio. Today in the news, UK works to speed up sport. Former Australian batsman has passed away. Newcastle receives death threats. NRL 360 hosts clash, and technology helps Team New Zealand physically distance when building their boat. So let's crack straight on with all of that as I hand you over to Stephen from the far north, who'll take us through our cricket news.
Yeah, good morning, Paul, and good morning, everybody out there viewing or listening. We start with a bit of sad news in cricket. One of Australia's enigmatic sportsmen during the 1960s and 1970s, Graham Watson, passed away on Friday, that's April 24th, after an extended battle with cancer. The all-rounder featured in just 5 tests and 2 ODIs for Australia, but was a celebrated person for his multi-skilled nature, both as a cricketer and a sportsman. Watson was the first Australian cricketer to represent 3 Sheffield Shield teams. He was also among a select band of players who managed to concurrently manage cricket and AFL seamlessly. A middle-order batsman, he also bowled effective medium pace. However, for all his skills, Watson was an unfortunate person when it comes to fitness. Injuries of all kind battered him, none more so while he was batting when he faced plenty of intimidating short ball stuff that mostly ended up damaging his body. The most infamous incident was to be the one when Tony Greig full toss ended up producing a career-threatening face injury for Watson. Despite being advised to end his career, Watson battled on for a few more years in cricket. His AFL stint was also heavily affected by injuries. Watson Aka, the Beetle, was a hugely popular figure among the cricketers for his generation. Former captain and Watson's teammate Ian Chappell paid a very emotional tribute to the fallen cricketer. In other cricketing news, former Pakistan batsman Sania Mir has announced her retirement, bringing to an end a 15-year career that saw her play 226 internationals, including 137 as a captain from 2009 to 2017. She had announced a break from international cricket in November last year to recalibrate her future objectives and targets. Last few months have provided me with an opportunity to contemplate. I feel it is the right time for me to move on. I believe I have contributed to the best of my ability for my country and the sport, Sana said in her statement on Saturday, April 25th. During my cricket journey, I have met and built strong friendships and bonding with some amazing cricketers in women's cricket. Listening about their stories, philosophies, have not only made me tougher and stronger athlete, but have also taught me great things about life, which are beyond yourself or sport or winning and losing. I think that's actually winning and losing. Sana made her ODI debut against Sri Lanka in Karachi in December 2005. She finishes with 151 wickets across 120 ODIs, joined 4th on the all-time list, and scored 1,630 runs, being one of the 9 women cricketers who have taken 100 wickets and scored 1,000 runs in the format. She made her T20I debut against Ireland in Dublin, May 2009, and finishes with 89 wickets and 802 runs across 106 matches in the format. Sana captained Pakistan in 72 ODIs, winning 26 and losing 45, and 65 T20s, winning 26 and losing 36. She also led Pakistan at 2 World Cups, 2013, 2017, and 5 ICC Women's T20 World Cups, 2009, 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016. And that's a pretty amazing CV and a really great way for this international women's cricketer to head out, Paul. And that's it in sports news for now. I'll be back shortly with more rugby league news.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And yes, for those of you who have been watching the show, if you would like to get involved and become one of the presenters on the show, then that would be much appreciated. You'll notice that we'd have less presenters on the last couple of days, and that's because New Zealand is returning to COVID level 3, and that means my co-hosts are heading back to work. and so they're not as available. So if you would like to become part of the team, then please do reach out. Moving on to football news, and the Premier League in England is working closely with the British government to get sort itself out and get back to playing. The British government has set up a sports meeting to work with Premier League, Women's Super League, English football leagues, the Scottish leagues, cricket, Formula One, the London Marathon, the rugby union, and golf, and other sports, to see how quickly they can help to fast track professional sport back into action, which I think really shows that if you look at the structure we have here in New Zealand, with Sports New Zealand already set up to do that kind of task, you've got to say that I think we've been a step ahead of some of the other countries in the way that we have got structure in place to coordinate these kind of actions. And that's all there is in football news for today. So I'm going to hand you back to Stephen from the Far North, who's going to take us through the birthdays.
Yeah, absolutely. And in birthdays today are promising Marco on the rise, a rowing Olympian, and a bronze medalist at the Seoul Olympics. And that's pretty much where we're starting. Tinks Pottinger is a New Zealand horsewoman who won a bronze medal at the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul. Pottinger, riding volunteer, was in the New Zealand three-day event team, which finished third, along with Andrew Benny, Margaret Knighton, and Mark Todd. In the individual three-day event at the same Olympics, she finished fifth. Judy Ann Pottinger, born this day, the 26th of April, 1956, in Waipawa. Tinks is 64 today. Now, Matthew Trott is a former New Zealand rower. Trott started rowing at the age of 15 and was a member of the Canterbury Rowing Club. He represented New Zealand at the 2012 Summer Olympics. He is listed as a New Zealand Olympian athlete number 1,220 by the New Zealand Olympic Committee. After 7 years with New Zealand's elite squad, he retired at the end of 2012 and became a rural banker. Matthew Trott, born this day, 26th of April, 1980 in Ashburton. Matt is 40 today. And staying in the South Island, Tima Whaianuku is a New Zealand rugby union player who currently plays for Perpignan in the top 14, having previously played for the Crusaders in Super Rugby and Tasman in the Mitre 10 Cup. His preferred position is wing. He made his Super Rugby debut for the Crusaders in their 34-20 win over the Chiefs in round 16, 2018. Tima was named in the Highlanders 2020 squad after Connor Garden-Bishop had to withdraw because of injury. Lotima Tofo'u Whaianuku, born this day, the 26th of April, 1997. Tima is 23. I believe he's got a brother as well, Paul, who also runs out for Tasman.
Well, congratulations to them, and let's have good birthdays today in lockdown. Talking about birthdays, Hannah Barrett put this on Instagram yesterday. Too many fries during lockdown or a bun in the oven? Can't wait to be a mama, and I already know you're going to be the most incredible dad, Bowden Barrett. Yes, Hannah Barrett has announced that she's expecting a baby that is due in September. So congratulations to the Barretts. They've got a little baby to come along and join their two dogs and expand their family. So let's hope everything goes well for them. Things that haven't been going so well is over in Rugby Australia, where Paul McLean, the acting chairman, has talked about some of the issues that Raelene Castle had to deal with during the Flower Fair. She got such a credible death threat. They take all death threats seriously, and when they say that, you realise just how frequently it must happen. But they got such a credible death threat during that time that they had to have police come in and check the security at Rugby Australia. All the downstairs doors were never to be propped open, and security was increased, as well as Raelene Castle's house being checked out to make sure it was secure. This gives you some of the idea, some of the stresses and the issues that she had to deal with during a time on top of all of the things that were going on in the pronounced McLean, rather than the thanks for the correction there in the live chat, Hugh. But he obviously, some of the issues that she had to deal with are not just in social media and the press that we know about. As McLean said, one of my greatest concerns with her was her welfare and how she was on a daily basis. A lesser person would have thrown the towel in ages ago, quite simply. So yes, Raelene Castle was stuck around for a long time. Moving on to Sterling Mortlock has been talking about what the Australian captains who wrote that letter to get to say that she should stand down, what their plan is. And apparently their plan is to connect professional sport to amateur sport, but they don't know how to go about it. What they're going to do is put together a board to discuss it and come up with the answers. So it seems that their answers to things not going right, as he says, for the past 15 years, basically since 2007 when he was captain, funnily enough, is to get rid of the person that's been in there for the past 2.5 years. There you go. They don't seem to have actually any solutions at the moment. He said it's not about immediate solutions. It's about empowering fresh thinking from all member unions and all stakeholders, but basically to use this opportunity to get it right. Well, yes, interesting way to get it right for you there. It's come to light that England's prop Joe Marler may not miss a game, or actually won't miss a game at all, despite having a 10-week ban for grabbing the genitalia of Alwyn Jones. This happened during the Six Nations game between England and Wales back in March. And because of the coronavirus lockdown, it does mean that his ban will finish before he's had to play any games. Even though it was a 10-week ban, it's supposed to be 10 games and hence was extended to 12 weeks because of bye weeks. But it does appear that they're not going to extend it to actual real games. Let's be honest, that has got to be wrong. If you get banned, you should miss the games. End of story. That is your rugby news. I hand you back to Stephen Harris, who will bring us up to date with the league news.
Well, thanks again, Paul, and I totally agree with you. That just sounds absolutely bizarre. Regardless of whether you're locked down, if games aren't being played, as far as I'm concerned, you should be suspended. But I'll tell you what, speaking of things happening, it's all happening again in rugby league. In a week that's been pretty full on when it comes to whether a competition's been starting or not, a full-on clash between 360 journalists, NRL 360 journalist Paul Kent and NRL host Ben Ikin has exploded. Now, Ben Ikin and Paul Kent have clashed over potentially cutting some or all of the points from the first 2 rounds in a revised competition when the season returns. Former Sydney Rooster and South Sydney player who was also on the panel, Brian Fletcher, asked Ikin if the NRL should increase the points to 3 points a win or 4 points a win. You could look at this in any number of ways, but if you go backwards, should the first 2 games be worth only 1.6 or 1.8 points per win? Ikin asked on Fox League Live. Seriously, mate, isolation is getting to you, Kent interjected. I can outline the thinking of the NRL and Peter V'landys is that given the projected shorter competition format, the points from the first 2 rounds are now worth 1. If you talk to someone inside the game who have been crunching the numbers, and one of these people is the chairman, they will tell you that the 4 points that were already won in the shortened season will in fact be worth 6.4 points, I can explain. So it depends on the length of the season. We can play when we come back. However, Kent believes every team knew the season was potentially going to be delayed going into round 1. I can remember Brad Arthur, who's also a journalist, saying at the beginning of the season, we don't know what is going to happen. So these early games are very important, Kent retorted. They were on notice. I don't think anyone can claim they didn't know the potential of what might happen. Now that it has happened, I think to say, well, we are planning on a 25-round season, I don't think that's right. But why is everything else up for negotiation? I can reply. Why is the length of the competition, the payments that go to players, the grants that go to clubs? I mean, everything is on the table. Kent hit back. But that is external. It is up for negotiation because it's external matters that are up for negotiation. It is the broadcasters. It is not within the game. However, I can believe that the game needs to rethink laterally to make a fair competition based on the hand they have been dealt with COVID-19 crisis. You are suggesting that because things haven't shifted inside the game that we shouldn't be able to shift with it. I can reply, was that true at the start of the season? Is no longer the case. They were aware of the truth and some chose to ignore it. Kent replied. So there you go. Not only battling with broadcasters, but battling amongst themselves. It's the gift that just keeps on giving, isn't it, Paul?
It is. You do wonder if they have lost it a little bit there. Surely, the points a game gets is the points a game gets, and trying to fiddle with all of these sort of things. Next, they'll be saying, you know what we should do is we should move to 4 tackles, not 5 or 6 or 7 tackles, because, hey, we've changed the number of games. So, no, look, you either have laws or you don't. These guys, go on.
Paul, just to interject there, I think for a few of them, they've all been in lockdown too long. So what are we looking at now? Almost a month before the actual season starts, but we'll have to, we'll just have to see what happens. I think the quicker these guys can get out on the paddock. There's a few questions also being asked in and around the Warriors. What is going to happen with the Warriors? So hopefully we'll have some more news over the next 24 hours. So we'll see you all tomorrow morning, Paul.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Yes, absolutely. You've got to say the Warriors and the Phoenix, and also the Breakers, with having that been the only team in New Zealand, have got issues that not anyone else has to deal with. Thankfully. Don't forget that at 2 p.m. every single weekday, that's Monday to Friday, we have got the Long Talk interviews. This week we had interviews with New Zealand Bowls, Bowls New Zealand, Volleyball New Zealand, Junior Polyinganga, and Surfing New Zealand as well. To next week, we've got Dale McLeod from the Southland head coach. We've also got Francisco, who is the scrum coach for Hawke's Bay. We've got Les Edwards from Tasman Rugby. And also got Oscar Howell, who is an esports reporter as well, all lined up for next week. So don't forget, 2 p.m. every single day on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch those interviews, and obviously they come out on the podcast as well. And the podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Acast, and all your favourite pod catchers. So just search for New Zealand Sport Radio for that. Moving on to other sports news. In the America's Cup, Team New Zealand have been working with their technology partners to come up with a system so that their people who are working on their boats can stay far apart or can stay social distance without having to keep looking at where each other is. They're going to be wearing little GPS tags, and they will buzz whenever anyone gets too close to each other. It'll also track who has been next to each other for contact tracking as well. And this will mean they can actually just concentrate on doing their jobs rather than having to keep a sort of a second eye up, a bit like when you watch animals in a herd where someone keeps putting up looking for predators. They won't have to do that during their working day. So good to see technology helping Team New Zealand get back to making their boat. Producing that second boat is a big thing for all of the America's Cup syndicates. The London Marathon is looking at a number of options so that it can go ahead later in the year. One of those is that it is just open to professional runners. That is apparently one of 10 different scenarios that they are looking at. So clearly a lot of work going on behind the scenes to try and make that race happen. As you'll be aware, marathon runners often have big gaps between their races, but there's going to be a massive rush to get a lot of marathons in the second half of the year, meaning there's going to be a fight between all those marathons for the top athletes. You would expect, as the athletes won't be able to compete in as many marathons this year as they would normally. Finally, UFC has announced its comeback We've had Fight Island. We've had an Indian reservation in California in a casino, but it looks like it's actually going to be Jacksonville, Florida, that is going to host UFC 249. If you remember that Florida is the state that gave WWE wrestling essential workers classification so that they could continue their use of their training facility to record shows and put out shows. So it's unsurprising that they have UFC has gone to Florida for that. In the UFC, they've also announced that there will be UFC 250 on the 13th of May, and then 251 on the 16th of May. But details of those cards have not been released as yet. So there we go. That's where it's going to happen. If you're a fight fan, then look out for that on the on the 9th of May, which will be the 10th of May, New Zealand time. So thank you very much, Steve, for joining me on the morning sports briefing. You are now up to speed with all of the important news to start your day the right way. Don't forget also that we have got 3 shows at 8 p.m. next week. So on Tuesday evening, there is Hash Rugby Chat, your rugby focused show. Wednesday evening, Do You Know Sport? The best sports quiz with the biggest prize. That's right, bragging rights on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. And then Swinging from the Hip is our brand new cricket show that goes live on live at 8 p.m. on Thursday evenings. So more content coming your way. Stay safe, stay in your bubble. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining us, and join us again tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for the morning sports briefing.